We're going to bring the presentation back online. Here we go. I forgot to get a drink while I was up. Hold on a second. There we go. Sorry, I didn't want you to see me get up because it might break the illusion that I'm sorry to tell you all this. I'm not actually in a magically enchanted forest, as per my background. But I wanted you all to carry some kind of hope, perhaps. All right, Aaron. Thank you very much. That will get us going and propel us. Now, hey, because I'm broadcasting from the store, not from the store. I don't know how used am I saying that. I'm used to broadcasting from the office full time. I can do giveaways and other things anytime. I have a bunch of prizes here, and if you all make it happen, you'll make it happen. I'll hopefully get the prize capsules back online next week. Here's hoping. I'm gonna try and do some fun things with that. Okay, we are in the action tracker here. When a combat scenario is likely to last more than a couple of rolls... Actually, hang on. Music might be just a touch. There we go. Turn it down just a little bit more. Hey, Bagger, good to see ya. Welcome. We're talking about action in Daggerheart now. When a combat scenario is likely to last more than a couple of rolls, when play moves to maps and miniatures, or when seconds count in the narrative, the GM should place the action tracker card on the table within everyone's reach. During this scene, PCs place action tokens on the tracker, and the GM spends those tokens to activate adversaries. When the action tracker is in use, your character can still make moves at any time. However, whenever you use an action, including any move that says use an action or requires an action roll, you must place a character token on the action tracker and resolve the action, ending your move. As a PC, your tokens aren't limited. They're just used to track how many times the GM can activate adversaries. So if you ever run out, you can grab more. After you end your move by placing an action token, the GM or another PC might act, or you might decide to make another move. You and your fellow PCs can still act in any order you like, following the narrative, but remember to pass the spotlight around the table to ensure everybody has a chance to act. If another player hasn't placed any tokens on the action tracker recently, consider letting them make a move if they want to before you do anything else. The passivity is still there, and is not helped with this mechanic. Is the mechanic clever? Maybe for what Daggerheart is. And I'm not holding a candle, Obscura or otherwise, for other systems initiative. Like D&D, it's an initiative system. I've talked about Alien RPG, that they do it through cards that are passed out and everything. The passivity of everything is just, it's grating. It's really grating. Adversary actions. When the GM... Well, here, let's use the visual here. Action tracker is placed on the table. As players take actions, they place tokens on the action tracker. The GM can spend 2 tokens at any time to gain a fear. When the GM makes a move, they spend tokens to activate adversaries. Hi, Skinian. Skinian says, the rules lack brevity, but possess copious quantities of verbosity. The rules are not walls of text. It's been pretty easy to go through. There's just been so much non-committal, and a very passive voice in writing things, where it just feels like the rule book's like, well, I mean, if you want to play our game, we kind of suggest you do it, but you don't have to. But you kind of probably should if it's okay by you. Maybe? No. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't want to force anything on you. Like, it just... It's like a... How can I describe this in other sensory terms? It's sort of like a dull headache. Like, it doesn't stop you from doing anything else during your day, but man, does it remind you of every second that passes during that day. So hopefully with the feedback that they're getting, whoever is writing and will edit this, and whatever team is working on this, this very passive tone. Now, if that's written towards the audience, that this is the tone, this is the language, then they're hitting it because it's consistent. But it feels kind of grating. It feels like a low-level headache. Like, I'm just reminded every section that everything is an option. I'm not brought into the world. I'm reminded that I'm reading a set of totally optional rules for a game about fantasy. And I'm consistently drawn out of what's happening. Because nothing means anything. Nothing is anything. Or it's not a rule. It's a suggestion book. Which they are. Any RPG is a suggestion book. This comes across not even heavy-handedly. It comes across meekly as a suggestion book. But we're going to continue because I will say this, because of the consistency, this does come across like a Saturday morning cartoon. This does come across like, we're all friends, beer and pretzels. Like, we're just here to play a game. Maybe that's another way. We're here to play a game, which a tabletop role-playing game is, though, at least for my hopes and dreams and play style, I don't like being reminded I'm playing a game when in fact I would like to tell a story or be a part of a story in some way. This is an RPG from Darrington Press, Scanian. The playtest material, the playtest material is freely available. If you go to their website, you can download it and review it yourself too, and give feedback. When the GM makes a move, usually after a player fails an action roll or rolls with fear, they can spend one or more tokens from the action tracker to activate that many adversaries. When the GM spends a token, they remove it from the action tracker and return it to the token's player. An activated adversary can take most any action your PC could, but most of the time they'll do one of the following. Move within close range and make a weapon attack, move within close range and use an adversary action, clear a condition, sprint far or very far away on the battlefield. Once the GM decides to stop spending action tokens, play returns to the PCs. The GM can spend a fear to place 2 additional tokens on the action tracker, then spend one or both of them on adversary actions. or they can spend 2 tokens to gain a fear. See using the action tracker in Chapter 3 for full rules on how the GM uses the action tracker. Example. Let's see if this can clear things up or it's providing a way forward. After Emerson's attack roll with fear in the example above, play moves to the GM. The GM takes all 3 tokens off the action tracker, spending the first to end the vulnerable condition on a nearby adversary who breaks free from the vines that were binding them. The GM spends the next token on the adversary Emerson just hit with his sword, describing the enemy's warhammer being pulled out of the mud and swung at Emerson's ribs. The enemy succeeds on the attack, then rolls for damage and totals it up for 9 physical damage. This falls within Emerson's major threshold, but he marks 2 armor slots and reduces the damage down to 5, only taking 1 hit point. With the last token, the GM describes an adversary sprinting all the way across the battlefield to get to the massive bell that would call in reinforcements. As the adversary prepares to ring it, the GM turns back to the players asking, "What do you want to do?" If your group prefers tactical play or structured player turns, you can limit the number of action tokens each PC can use on the action tracker at a time. It is recommended to start with 3, but you may decrease or increase the number as your table prefers. When the action tracker is in use, every player... You see what I mean? We make a statement and then we retract it. Which many tables, it might natively be understood, or because of the golden rule that started everything off, it's your table, adjusted as you need to. It's kind of a redundancy that undermines the theme, that undermines the spirit or the writing, where I'm constantly being reminded that I don't have to do anything that I'm being told to do. And this is probably something that will get cleaned up in editing. I hope so. Remember that. This hasn't gone through an editor. This hasn't gone through some sort of finalization. This is not the final rule book. This is still in process. And so I hope that feedback isn't just for the math and balancing the numbers, you know, the very sterile part of games like this. And I'll make sure to include this in my feedback as well, that I really desperately hope that the way that the rules are written is revised. I don't know. They probably have a website that has that kind of info on it. Survival. I mean, it's Wizards and Paizo are over in Washington, so it does. There is some major publishing going on out that way. So it could be a reflection of the office or corporate culture in Darrington Press. That this is the tone that the staff or the managers take. That everything is okay, maybe kinda sorta, or everything is always talked around or navigated around. This could just be a reflection of that corporate culture or the linguistic values that they hold. I don't know. I'll treat this as it's a beta test draft, but I don't like having to keep, this gets set down. Stop it. I don't want this right now. But how about this? Did you consider this? I don't want to consider. I want information. I don't want to be told something and have it retracted the next sentence. When the action tracker is in use, every player places that number of action tokens on their character sheet. Ready for use. Players then act as usual, and each time they make an action roll, they spend one available action token by moving it to the table's action. This also has... if not board game vibes, which is okay, you know, cards, board games. And I also understand a lot of people need like fidget spinners or fidget toys. A lot of this seems to offer like fidget stuff to do. Like moving trackers, and you have cards that you can hold in your hand and shuffle and that you can play, and tokens for +1s instead of like up here. That you include as a part of your basic arithmetic. A lot of this feels like there's built-in fidget spinners. Maybe is that another sensory way of describing? Maybe I'm the only one who thinks this way, and I'm fine. I'm fine if I am an island in that regard. It seems like there's just a lot of fidget spinners built into this that are arguably necessary. I don't know if that helps who's the target audience, the way that things are having to be explained on a simple emotional level, like you're talking to a child or someone who can't emotionally process things, maybe because of some kind of Asperger's or autism. And I say that with a lot of people on the spectrum in the store. There are certainly ways to better convey yourself to those who can't process either implications or the tone of voice or facial, in that conversation. And maybe this is also what is influencing my take on this. It kind of comes across that I'm being explained. This game is being explained to me like I am a child, or perhaps I do have autism. And because this is... Well, I hope that's not a marketing ploy. I don't know. To me, that seems like that would be super offensive if that was, if that was the case. I doubt it. Considering presumptions maybe on the crew or something that might be writing this, or modern sensibilities that are baked into stuff, because they have notes on other things that have been hot button issues on Twitter and other places. Like they made a promise that a combat wheelchair was incoming and everything. I would hope that this is not somehow a marketing ploy, like, because that's a whole other, that would not be good if that was the case. But the way it's being explained, but if this is meant to be a beginner level, like you are intending for this to be maybe a younger person's first RPG, the way this is being explained, then maybe this is the explanation that you need to give to maybe a 10-year-old who wants to play, who wants to go into the PG-13 mode, who wants to delve into, these things that, the adults who play these other games play. But the way it's coming across and being explained to me as a not 10-year-old is... It does seem to make the game more of a Saturday morning cartoon, which is fine if it is. Because it is consistent in that regard. the active, I do find the active voice engaging. I personally do not like passive voice conversations or speaking. If someone's going to tell me something, tell me something. Don't dance around it. If it's bad news, give me the bad news. Let's resolve it. Or even if I somehow offended someone, tell me. I'm sorry. I mean, if I meant to offend someone, I would probably... I would make it... Here, I even said... I would make it clear if I was being offensive. My personality isn't everyone's personality, but... So, with the way that it's presented thus far, I think that if I look at this is kind of like a Saturday morning cartoon, Nintendo game. It's a bright, shiny, like Link's Awakening, the remake for the remake for the Switch. Everything is like just bright and shiny and plastic, and yeah, you can get hurt by enemies, but it doesn't really mean anything. And if you die, you can just come back to life, because those are the types of games that some people really want or crave. This game, and this is not an insult, nor is it, I'm not winning points with anyone. This is definitely no OSR game. It's not gritty. This is definitely never going to be confused with any kind of system like that. And I do believe that the creators know that, and that's not what they want. They do want that it's a golden horizon at all points in time. You are going to grow up and be the big damn hero of the story, guaranteed. Like, this is the way forward. And here, we're going to slot you into this character, and you're going to go forward through it. And that is a mood. That is a desire, because there are times when you do need a very obvious, shiny goal put in front of you to lurch you out of the muck, to lurch you out of whatever, right? Sometimes you need those golden that golden horizon. And I think that this is a game that supports that, which is fine. Absolutely fine. Where was I? I'm sorry. I'm not dropping hot takes, am I? Nothing about nothing about this should be anything more than tepid. Maybe lukewarm at spiciest. But I'm trying to figure it out from my perspective of playing and selling so many different types of games. What is this? What is this presented as? To whom? Who is the target market for this game? What is the mood? What is the, is this marketed for the demographics of Critical Role? Is this marketed for the demographics of people who enjoy watching games on Twitch or Kick or YouTube or Facebook? Maybe. Is this meant as a game that you do play with younger kids to bridge them into more mature concepts? Maybe too. And maybe there's overlapping in the Venn diagram. And so I don't know. Let's continue along here. And I'm not upset. I may be speaking emphatically. I'm not raging. I don't want anyone canceled. I'm not protesting or boycotting anything. This is not the end of days as we know it for tabletop RPGs. This is a process of figuring something out. And I've not seen this before, and you're getting my thoughts as they're occurring. So, hey, good morning to you, Amon. When the action tracker is in use, every player places that number of action tokens on their character sheet, ready for use. Players then act as usual, and each time they make an action roll, they spend one available action token by moving it to the table's action tracker. Collaborate with other players on passing play around the table, making moves, and telling the story together, even if you have multiple action tokens. See if any other players want a turn before you spend more than one in a row. Once every player has used their available tokens, players refill their character sheet with the same number of tokens as before, then continue playing. The GM makes moves as usual. When the GM uses an action token, they give it back to the player it came from, but the player doesn't place that token on their character sheet until it's time for the table to replenish their tokens. Even while using turns with the action tracker, consider how your character would act in the current situation and use their perspective to guide the story forward, rather than worrying too much about what tactics should come next. Remember that your character doesn't know their actions are dictated by an action tracker. Taking turns can help your group coordinate tactical decisions, but it's not the central focus of combat. Some groups might decide to temporarily use the turn-based initiative rules to reduce the learning curve for players who are used to tactical gameplay, while others will enjoy using them for the entire campaign. Do whatever best supports your group in weaving a story together. General rules. The following rules apply to many aspects of the game. The game doesn't use fractional numbers. If you need to round to a whole number, round up unless otherwise specified. If any two effects are happening simultaneously and the rules don't tell you which order they apply in, the player or GM controlling the effects can do so in any order. For example, if one ability lets you spend a hope to retaliate after an attack, and another ability lets you gain hope when you mark a hit point, you can decide to gain the hope first, then spend it on the attack. Similarly, if you have multiple moves that can trigger in a situation, like two moves that occur after a successful attack, you can use them together and choose which order to use them in. As always, if there's any uncertainty, the GM arbitrates how effects apply. At the GM's discretion, most effects can stack. For example, if two bards each give you a rally die, you can spend both of them on the same roll if you wish. However, you can't stack conditions, advantage or disadvantage, or other effects that say you can't. If a rule tells you to spend a resource, you lose that resource when you spend it. For example, when you spend a hope on an ability, you erase a hope that you've marked on your character sheet. Similarly, if a bard gives you their rally die, when you choose to spend it and add its result to your roll, you lose the die and return it to the other player. This section, or player best practices. This section provides guidance around player best practices and how to get the most out of Daggerheart. As always, take what works for you and your table from this section and leave behind anything that doesn't resonate with you. The life of an adventurer is a dangerous one, often filled with treacherous paths, monstrous beasts, and powerful foes. Along the way, it's most certain that you will face difficult choices and life-threatening peril. It's important as adventurers to embrace this danger as part of the game. Playing it safe, not taking risks, and overthinking a plan can often slow the game to a halt. So don't be afraid to leap in head first and think like a storyteller. What would the hero of a novel or TV show do here? Think about not only what might be obvious, but what might also be most interesting, or how your character might approach the situation differently because of their background. But no matter what you do, keep the story moving forward. The worst thing you can do as an adventurer is get so caught up in trying not to get hurt that you stop being adventurous at all. You have some control over whether you live or die, and you've got scars you can take if need be. It's important to remember that you are not your character. It's okay to put them into harm's way, push them to their limits, and take big risks if that's what's right for the story. Their trials and tribulations, their failures, are not yours. We might always want to win, but we do that as players by driving a compelling narrative together, not by having successful dice rolls every time. Player characters in Daggerheart have access to a number of resources that help them in their heroic journeys. Chief among them is Hope, the most liquid resource that will come and go frequently over the course of a session. You'll gain a Hope roughly every other time you make an action roll, so you're encouraged to spend it for Hope features, to help your comrades, to utilize experiences, and more. Stress, hit points, and armor are chief among your other resources. They interact in varying ways that you can manipulate and optimize with domain abilities, heritage traits, your class feature, and more. For players excited about the crunch of interacting mechanics, look to those resources and think about how managing them helps you get the most out of your character. This will help your character to contribute in conflicts and battles to the best of their potential to enhance the overall story. You are an equal partner in telling the story alongside everyone else at the table. The GM will present opportunities and challenges for the party along the way, but they are not the sole author of the narrative you're all exploring. Daggerheart is a collaborative experience where everyone is responsible for bringing the kind of tone, feel, and themes they're interested in to the table. If you want a certain theme or emotional arc to be a part of your story, talk with your GM about finding those opportunities and take it upon yourself to seize them when they show up. You might also choose to take moments within the scenes you are playing to showcase the driving force of that emotion and make actions that reflect that desire. Your role as a player in Daggerheart is to guide your character along the best story arc you can, not necessarily to always make the most tactical or strategic moves. Think about what you're interested in saying thematically with the narrative, and let that be expressed through your character. It's okay to not know everything about your character when you sit down to play for the first time, or the 10th time, or the 100th time. When the game begins, you only have a few pieces of information to go off of. What they might be good at, some backstory about their past, their relationships with a few other characters, what kind of weapon they carry, etc. But all of this doesn't mean you have a firm grasp on who this person actually is yet, and that's okay. Think of character creation as an ongoing process that continues through every session you play that character. The GM might turn to you to ask something about your past that you may not have worked out or thought of yet. You could take this opportunity to invent something on the spot, or ask them to talk through some ideas with you before you settle on one. Try to use the game's fiction to discover things about your character, and let those discoveries flow into the kinds of decisions they make. When a party has accomplished something of significance in a campaign, the GM may tell them that it's time to level up. How often this happens is up to your GM and your group's narrative preferences, but most groups play at least 3 sessions, or many more, in between each time they level up. When you level up, all the members of the party will raise their level by +1 and have the chance to upgrade their character's traits and abilities. Generally, characters begin their journey at level 1 and end their journey at level 10. But if a party loses a character in the middle of a campaign, the GM may instead choose to have that player make a new character at the appropriate level of the party, if the player wishes. When a party levels up, each player will follow the steps outlined in the leveling up section of the character guide. This section is divided up into 3 tier blocks. The first tier is for levels 2 to 4, second is 5 to 7, third 8 to 10. Each tier has a different set of options players may choose from when upgrading their characters. More details about each of these tiers will be detailed in the following sections. The first thing players do is take any level achievements their character has earned. These are given in bold at the top of their tier block, or in the top of the tier block. They include, and the following is here, so you can download this and review the list. Next, players have a set of options for upgrading their character. This can be found on their character guide or in the class section of this book. They choose 2 from the list that have an open box next to them. They may choose the same one twice if it has 2 open boxes. Make the changes on their character sheet that reflect this upgrade. Then on their character guide, mark one of the open boxes on the options they choose. Any options with all of their boxes marked can't be used again. All right, so this goes, this is straightforward. It's all on the level up chart. All the classes have the same level up charts available. Now, there's a lot of options, so every player through his or her class and subclass can still wiggle around, and you can have 2 different sorcerers in the same party in this system, even through level up. If you want to make them exactly the same too, you can. So when I say that the options are the same, it's for this part of the level up. That there's the same availability of advancement. That's not said in a negative way. It's said in just a neutral. That's how the system is working. After choosing advancements, they raise their damage thresholds as designated by the tier. The amount varies depending on a PC's class and can be found on the level up sheet. Taking domain cards. Starting at level 5, you may choose multi-classing as an option when leveling up. When you multi-class, you will get to choose an additional class to take a domain from and gain access to that class's class feature. Take the appropriate multi-class module and add it to the right side of your character sheet. Then choose a foundation card from the subclass of your choice. If that foundation card has a spellcast trait on it, you can choose to use that trait when making a spellcast roll. When you multi-class, you also must cross out one available take an upgraded subclass card option on the level up sheet, meaning you won't be able to gain the mastery card for any subclass. You will also cross out any other multi-class options, as you can only multi-class once during a campaign. During a domain you don't already have access, choose a domain you don't already have access to from the choices on the module. Whenever you get to choose domain cards, you may now always also look at cards that match your additional domain at half your current level rounded up. This means a level 5 wizard who decides to multi-class into druid and chooses the sage domain would also have the option of any level 3 or below sage domain cards. Any attacks, spells, or other moves you choose while multi-classing are always performed at your current level. For example, a level 7 wizard that multi-classed into a druid can use the level 7 beast form options. If any move you get by multi-classing asks you to use a number of dice equal to your level, it is the level on your character sheet. It is only the domain cards that are subject to the half-level restriction. And just so, for any of you who are joining, this is the 1.2 character sheet. We're discussing 1.3. I don't know if there's a big difference. This is the character sheet. So it's talking about, you have cards that are accessories to this that there's the module they talk about adding to your character sheet. So the character sheet itself is basic because a lot of your play and other things comes from cards that you're holding on to. Well, for the conversation in chat right now, this game has you covered if that's what you want to do. It's there, and it is your table. So take it in whatever direction you want or don't. You do not have to. Cat's party has just advanced to level 2, and the group is leveling up together. Cat slides up the warrior character information sheet to bring Tabby up to level 2. First, Cat adds a new experience for Tabby because Tabby has been doing a lot of acrobatics and daring jumps. They decide... acrobatics and daring jumps, they decide to give her the experience, always land on my feet. It's a new experience, so they set it at +1. Next, they look at the advancement options for levels 2 to 4. They know they want to increase Tabby's agility, since that's her primary trait for combat. So first they mark increase 2 unmarked character traits by 1 and mark them. Cat chooses agility and instinct, raising each by 1. Tabby now has an agility of +3 and an instinct of +2. Then marks the circle by each trait raised as a reminder that they can't be raised again until Tabby hits level 5 and clears marks on all traits. Next, because Tabby is the front line for her group, Cat marks permanently add 1 armor slot. They look at the armor section of Tabby's character sheet and permanently fill in the outline of one of the dotted squares to represent Tabby gaining a new permanent armor slot. That means she'll be able to take more punishment in combat. Then they go to Tabby's damage thresholds and increase Tabby's severe threshold by 2 from 15 to 17. Lastly, Cat asks for the domain decks for Blade and Bone to pick a new domain card at level 2 or lower. At level 2, their options in the Blade deck are Reckless and a Soldier's Bond. Their choices from the Bone are Strategic, Approach, and Ferocity. Cat really likes the option to gain and give hope with a Soldier's Bond, and since Tabby's knowledge trait is only 0, they don't think Strategic Approach is a good choice. They settle on Ferocity to give themselves an evasion boost when Tabby is in the middle of a number of foes and taking a lot of attacks. New domain card in their loadout, Cat reviews the steps. They added their experience of always land on my feet at +1. They picked 2 advancement options and applied them. They raised their severe hit point threshold, and they selected a new domain card, Ferocity. Cat goes back and writes in 2 for Tabby's level, and then updates the damage bonus from combat training to +2. Since her level has increased. Now Tabby's ready to continue her journey as a level 2 warrior. Hi, Woden. Thank you for joining us here. As a player, you can equip weapons and armor to your character by recording them on your character sheet in the active weapon and active armor sections. When equipped, you can attack with the weapons, benefit from the armor, and gain any other features of those items. Let me bring that up real quick like. Boop. There you go. Hi, Jericho. Oh, which one? Is Phantom of the Opera still running? Did you go all the way up to Toronto for that? How long has that been going on now? Like 30 years? What is that story about, Jericho? Equipping, storing, and switching equipment. Okay, so there's that. As you acquire new gear throughout your journey, you can carry 2 additional weapons, either primary or secondary, or any combination of the 2, in the inventory weapon slots. There's only so much room in your pack. The inventory weapon slots hold gear you don't have equipped, so you aren't wielding these items and you don't gain their benefits. You can use an action to equip an inventory weapon, moving your previous active weapon into your inventory weapon section. You can't equip armor while in danger or under pressure. At those times, you can equip armor freely, replacing your previous active armor with armor you've purchased or otherwise acquired. Each armor uses its own armor slots as recorded in the boxes in that section. If you switch armor, be sure to keep track of how many armor slots you've marked on the old and new armor, especially if you are giving your old armor to a party member. You cannot carry additional armor in your inventory. So this is using, and I'm perfectly fine with this, because, again, the inventory minigame, I understand concepts of, being overburdened or encumbrance or bulk or other things. Alien RPG has a very simple way for some of that stuff, and I like a simpler approach, kind of like what this is offering. So I'm a fan of elegance when it comes to this. But I'm also the type of person who self-restricts, because in a D&D setting, I don't allow for extra dimensional spaces. So you carry what you carry, so make what you carry worth it, because you can't, you do have something limited, whether that's limited by the number of lines on a sheet or that's limited by an encumbrance value or something similar. Make what you have worth something, right? 6 wives of Henry VII start a pop group and compete to see who has the most traumatic backstory to see who should lead said pop group. Oh, well, welcome back from the ad, Jericho. I read your summary. Is this not that I keep up on Broadway musicals? Is this the next like hot big thing? Is this more of like a this is a smaller up and coming show? It certainly seems niche. I hope you had fun with it. That it had good, powerful music. Great costumes. It's touring right now? Okay. Well, Jericho, I hope that you had a really fun time. Hey, if it found a niche and it's hitting it, Jericho, excellent. Nope. Well, good. And that you had a fun night out. Maybe there was a catchy tune or something. Actually, hang on, let's bring that over this way. There was a catchy tune or something. I'm glad you enjoyed your time. We're going over the version 1.3 playtest rules of Daggerheart. Going over things on a mechanical level, on a tonal level, I guess. Trying to figure out maybe, well, speaking of like niche things, like who the audience for this might be or what is trying to be conveyed through it. So we're taking a friendly and conversational approach. Primary weapons are the main weapons you'll likely be fighting with during an encounter. You can only hold one of these at a time in your primary weapon slot. If you take a weapon with a burden of 2 hands, and you can see that can be marked on the character sheet. You see how it has the hands up by active weapons. So you can mark if something is 1 hand or 2 hands. Like you can color it in or put a dot or something. If you take a weapon with a burden of 2 hands, this is typically the only weapon you can have active. To find the list of starting primary weapons called Tier 0 primary weapons, see primary weapons tables. Secondary weapons are typically ancillary pieces of equipment that augment your fighting, like shields, daggers, small swords, etc. If your primary weapon has a burden of 1 hand, it is recommended you also take a secondary weapon. But you can't hold a secondary weapon if your primary weapon requires 2 hands. You can only hold 1 secondary weapon at a time, which goes in your secondary weapon slot. To find the list of starting secondary weapons, called Tier 0 secondary weapons, see secondary weapon tables. You can make an attack roll with either a primary or secondary weapon you have equipped, allowing for flexibility in the types of attacks you can make. The secondary weapon often also has a feature that augments another aspect of your fighting style as well. A dagger might grant you extra damage to targets you attack with your primary weapon in melee. A shield might add to your armor score, etc. Most adventurers will choose to carry at least a primary weapon, but you're not required to. For guidance on fighting without a weapon, see unarmed combat rolls. When you're using a weapon that could be theoretically thrown, like a dagger or an axe, you can throw it at a target within very close range, making a finesse attack roll. On a success, deal damage as usual for that weapon. Once thrown, you lose that weapon unless you retrieve it. You can't attack with it or benefit from its features. Each weapon presented in this book includes its name, trait, etc. And so here's an example. Short sword is off of agility, melee, range, deals a d8 physical damage. Its burden is one-handed, and it has a feature that it's reliable, +1 to attack rolls with this weapon. In your character's early adventures, most weapon names are the same as their type. For starting weapons, this is often something straightforward, like battle axe or hand runes. As characters level up and collect better equipment, this type could become more specific, something like a flaming dragon scale blade, valiant bow, or even a named weapon like the wand of Essek. This tells you, the trait tells you which traits used in making the attack. Pardon, the range is the range. This is all fairly obvious. Again, free to download, darringtonpress.com. Go and get it if you want the minutia that I'm skipping. Pardon. That I'm skipping over here. Reminder on the damage dice and damage types. Armor allows you to mark armor slots to reduce incoming damage. Whenever you equip armor on your character, record its details in the active armor section of your character sheet. Then, in the armor box at the top left of your character sheet, record your armor score. Your armor score includes your armor's base score, plus any permanent bonuses you have to your armor from other abilities. If you see, armor is in the upper left, next to evasion. And then there's the little check boxes next to it. Armor is defined by 3 details: a name, a base value, and sometimes a feature. For example, the breastplate starting armor has the following statistics. Base score of 3, and it's stiff, -1 to agility. As with weapons, most early armor is simply named for its type, such as breastplate armor. As you level up, you might acquire special armor, such as Veritas Opal armor. Your armor's base score determines how much each armor slot reduces damage by. For any bonuses from other abilities. For example, if your base score is 3, you reduce damage by 3 each time you mark an armor slot. Armor features describe any special rules that apply only to that particular armor. For example, some reduce or increase your statistics, and others give you special ways to use your armor slots. When you take damage, you can negate some or all of it by marking one of the open armor slots next to the armor box, then reducing the damage by your armor score. You start with 6 armor slots and can earn more over the course of a campaign. Each time you take damage, you can mark as many armor slots as you'd like, up to the total you have remaining, when reducing damage. Once all armor slots are filled, your armor is considered broken and can't be used again until you repair it, usually as a move during downtime. If you have an armor score of 0, you can't mark armor slots. If an effect gives you a temporary armor score, like the Earth Elemental incarnation for the Warden of the Elements, you can mark armor slots while the temporary armor is up. Any used slots must still be cleared at downtime before they can be used again. All right. Weapon table. I'm not worried about the math right now. For all I know, this math is balanced perfectly, or it's wildly out of sync, and this is a wholly inappropriate chart for the system. I don't know. At this point in the review, I'm passing by it. I don't care about the math. I want to get to know the rule structure. I want to get to know the ebb and flow of the game. I want to know the tone. How can I present this? As someone who might be in a position to want to carry this in my store, or if I have to pitch it to someone, to whom am I pitching it, and what do I have to talk about? You know, I'm not going to talk about, oh, your short sword is a D8 physical, one-handed, reliable weapon. I need to know the things that were brought up otherwise. Who is the target audience of Daggerheart? How does this play? How does this treat the roles of the player or the not player? You know, in this case, the game master. So I'm skipping over this table because it either works or it doesn't, and right now I don't care about that because I can't sell a system I don't know the tone to. But if you want to do the math, and I don't mind going back and doing the math later, I just want to know, you know, teach me the variable equation, and I'll plug the math in any time that I want. Oh, we're going. Hang on. I'm scrolling more quickly. Armor tables. Loot in Daggerheart consists of the additional items and consumables you might find along your journey. Pull directly from the tables below, or use them as inspiration for your own loot. Items are loot that you carry in your inventory indefinitely. Unless you choose to get rid of them or something happens in the narrative that causes you to lose them, they remain with you. Alright, so things with effects, not going to worry about that. But it's here. We're on page 131. If you do like looking at gear, you are deeply interested in the mechanics of Ogre Musk. Keep anybody from tracking you by physical or magic means until your next short rest. You don't want to attract ogres? They are nuanced and layered like onions and parfaits. All right, let's finish out Chapter 2 with this last part here. Questions to consider for GMs. In the example above, Jess's roll with Hope to finish off the Skeleton Knight meant that the PCs would have been able to act again before the archers. Those archers hadn't taken any damage, but Max described them falling apart after the knight died. Do you feel like that was a satisfying end to the combat, or would you have had the archers keep fighting? The explanation Max offered to Kraz would be taken as precedent. So if Max chooses to not end a fight early in the future, when the party destroys the most powerful skeleton, they'll want to have an idea in mind why it's different that time to maintain the integrity of the story. Max allowed Kraz to make 2 jumps using the arcane door spell rather than making him roll for each casting. When a character is using an ability like that, do you want to call for a roll for each use, or let one roll represent chaining the ability a couple of times like Max ruled above? Would you have had the Skeleton Knight deal its dying blow, or skipped it to highlight Tabby's critical success? You don't always have to use... Alright, so yeah, this is... Gotcha. Tell the story how you want. Make decisions which are either circumstantial to the immediacy or are now and perhaps ever ongoing home baked into. All right, I got it. I got it. This has been reinforced consistently now for everything from the intro through these 2 chapters. I gotcha. I promise, Daggerheart. I understand. I understand. Okay. we'll we'll leave off at the close of chapter 2 on the precipice here of chapter 3.